Formula 2 is the last step before Formula 1, and since 2018 all F1 rookies have driven in Formula 2 or GP2 before they've made their debut in Formula 1. Last year's number 3 in the championship, Guan Yu Zhou, will drive in F1 in 2022, and there are a lot of talented drivers on this year's F2 grid as well. There will be rookies and returnees, chaos guaranteed, and way more to look forward to in this year's Formula 2 season, and I will try to predict some of it in this video. So I'll predict the season by the following measures: best rookie, biggest surprise and biggest flop, most pole position, top 12 championship order, and I'll end with the drivers I expect to graduate to Formula 1. So I'll start with the best rookie, and I reckon I have to choose between Dennis Hauger, Jack Doohan and Logan Sargent. I think Vesti will have the second ART seat curse, and the other drivers simply don't have the teams or the driver quality to fight for high places. Last year in F3, the first two drivers, of which Dennis is supported by Red Bull and Jack is supported by Alpine, fought for the championship. Or well, Doohan was the final driver with a mathematical chance on the championship before Hauger won it with 2 races in hand in the final weekend. Doohan, however, was the only driver to get 2 wins in the same weekend, which he did at a very wet Spa. Jack also drove 2 weekends in Formula 2 at the back end of last season and actually qualified second for the final race of the season. This means Jack probably has a bit of an advantage coming into the new season, whereas Hauger drives with the team champions of the final 2 years. He also drove with them in F3, and though he knows the team, whereas Doohan is with a new team for him, Virtuosi. Logan Sargent is a whole other story, as he was very close to being the F3 champ in 2020 when he faced very big financial struggles. Where usually he would have stepped up to Formula 2 for 2021, he had to do another year of F3 driving with Charoux, the team that finished dead last in 2020. Logan, however, finished 7th in the championship with 3 podiums and a win to his name. He finished above 2 Prema drivers and 10 places above his nearest teammate. Logan will drive with Carling alongside Liam Lawson, and I think Logan is the only driver who will be beaten by his teammate, as Marino Sado and Jehanto Ruvala will be slapped around their respective rooms by Dennis and Jack. I think because Dennis is in a better team, he will be the best rookie this year. Last year the expectations for Ralph Buschung were pretty low, but he had quite some good weekends, scoring decent points and 2 podiums, and in my opinion he was the biggest surprise of that season. And for this year, I think the biggest surprise will be Jake Hughes, who is driving with the new team Van Amersfoort Racing. Actually, a quick fun fact: the factory of Van Amersfoort is only on a half an hour drive from my home. Well, anyway, I think Jake Hughes will be the biggest surprise, as he's a very experienced driver, and on all the occasions he got to drive in F2 he performed quite decent, and with a full season drive I think he can fight himself into the top 12 in the championship, which would be quite an achievement in a new team. Who will be the complete opposite though, the biggest flop? Well, this isn't a very difficult one for me, regarding there's a Turkish driver with an incredible amount of Turkish fans who average less wheel knowledge than F1 Jordan, sporting a not very experienced nor talented driver. Cem Bulukbashi will drive with Charoux this year, not having driven in F3 before this, and that doesn't seem to be very optimal looking at the results of Petekov last year. The main difference is Cem has a very huge financial backing, whereas Petekov was mainly in F2 due to funding issues and not being able to fund an F3 seat. What Cem did do is finishing 5th in a not very competitive Euro Formula Open Championship. I don't think Cem will be as bad as Deleda, but he'll be more like a Sado or a Samaya, not really scoring any points, but not qualifying out of the 107% rule in qualifying. But who will be the benchmark for that 107% on pole position the most time next year? I think the contenders for this are Pourchaire and Lawson, as both of them took 1 pole in F2, and Hauger and Doohan, who shared 5 of the 7 poles in F3. I think the 2 of these who perform the best are Pourchaire and Hauger, and as Hauger will still have to prove himself in F2 machinery, and Theo already showed glimpses of class last year in Monaco, where he was on pole 4 tenths clear of the rest of the field, I think Theo Pourchaire will be the one with the most pole positions in Formula 2 this year. Well, so let's get to the championship order predictions. I will try to predict the top 12 starting from P12, where I think Jake Hughes will finish in his first full F2 season with the new team VAR. As I said, I think he'll score points every now and then and finish behind Ralph Buschung, the Swiss who is in his 5th year of Formula 2, constantly negotiating himself into a new contract. Ralph showed glimpses of class last year, but driving with Campos, I do not think he'll deliver that excellent results needed for the top 10. Who will though is Frederick Vesti. The Dane will drive with ART after 2 years of F3 where he finished 4th in both years. He was consistently in the top 10 but didn't have a lot of outstanding results unfortunately for him, and I expect the same kind of year for him this year. Marcus Armstrong, who has switched F2 teams for the 3rd time in 3 years, having driven for ART and Dams before his current stint at Hitech GP, will finish in 9th, I reckon. He has been dropped from the Ferrari driver academy after finishing 13th in F2 the last 2 years, but I think he'll just about make it to the top 10 this year, with Felipe Drugovic finishing in 8th in the championship. He's back with MP Motorsport after leaving for Virtuosi for 1 year, a year which was very inconsistent with with quite some bad luck. I think he'll have a decent few weekends, but overall he'll struggle this year, eventually finishing behind rookie Logan Sargent. Logan was a consistently great scorer last year in the Charoux and has proven himself to be a good driver within the Williams Academy since this year as well. And though he'll want to prove to the bosses he's enough for an F1 seat, and if you want to know my expectations on whether he'll get that F1 seat, you'll have to stick around for a little longer, as I'll first tell you my top 6. Starting with Jack Doohan. The Australian rookie will drive with Virtuosi Racing after doing the final 2 weekends with MP last year, actually performing pretty damn good, finishing in the points twice and qualifying second at Abu Dhabi, but unfortunately he crashed out in a feature race while being on a podium position. I think we'll see him finishing in the top 10 in most of the races, and he will possibly win a race or two. And that's exactly what Jehan Durvala did last year, but now the Indian has made the switch up to Prema. I've made an entire video which you can watch after this one about Jehan and what I expect from him in the coming years related to his F1 chances. It seems like after a good race weekend, his next one is always bad, so I think he'll finish 5th in this year's F2 championship, 1 place behind his teammate Dennis Hauger, who dominated F3 last year. And I think he's set for a good run in F2 as well with Prema. I think Dennis has the qualities to score some great points and score quite some podiums in his debut season in F2, trying to impress Helmut Marko, as he is one of the 4 drivers of the Red Bull Academy who are in my top 5, with another 2 of them being in a real title fight, finishing in the top 3. That fight is between Liam Lawson, Yuri Vips and Theo Pourchaire. I think Liam Lawson, who switched to Carlin for this year, will finish in P3. Last year he drove in both F2 and DTM, and I actually got to kind of take a selfie with him at Assen. Well, that doesn't matter anything for these predictions though. I'm basing that on his performances in F2 last year, where he had some pretty good weekends at the start of the season, winning a race and finishing 3rd in Bahrain and winning a race in Monaco as well before being disqualified over a technical irregularity. At Baku he qualified on pole but couldn't convert that to a podium, and I think he'll deliver more of those good weekends, winning some races and just overall having a decent season, but just about ending up behind his last year's teammate Yuri Vips, who I think will just about lose out to Theo Pourchaire for the title fight. But first let's talk about Yuri, who had some really high ups last season and one big down, that being his first weekend. His ups were definitely Baku, where he became the first driver in F2 to win 2 races in the same weekend, paired with more podiums at Monaco, Silverstone, Sochi and Jeddah. I bet he will win quite a few races and put in some great performances, but just come short to my F2 2022 champion Theo Pourchaire, who I think will come out as the best of this year. Last year he proved his class in Monaco and was very consistent over the entire year, being the 2nd best rookie, only behind the champion Oscar Piastri in the championship. I think Theo will show more Monaco-like performances and will be a very regular podium finisher, as I think he will be the one with the big trophy at the end of November in Abu Dhabi, as he will actually be promoted to F1 by Alfa Romeo by that time as well. A lot of people in F1 already know the talent the Frenchman has, and especially Fred Vasseur is a massive fan of him, and I think Fred will be able to convince enough people to give the seat next to Bottas to Pourchaire, as Zhou will transfer to another F1 team, but that's something for another video. Will Theo be the only one to make the step though, you may ask? Well, I do not think so, as there will be an Alpha Tauri seat up for grabs, which has to be taken by one of the Red Bull juniors in F2, and that will be awarded to the highest finishing Red Bull junior in the championship, which will be Yuri Vips, as I just predicted. I think we will see the first Estonian in F1 ever, and those pretty much were my predictions. What do you think of them? Make sure to shit on my predictions in the comments down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe as well. I hope to see all of you in another video on my channel. Bye bye!